I have put up two videos with letters from Jack Hartsfield on them. Uh, Jack was a reporter that working for the Huntsville Times in 1980 that saved my life, really. I had had antifreeze put in me April Fool Day of 80 and went to West Paces Ferry, which was part of Hospital Corporation of America, and to get a tox screen because I knew that what had been put in me was bad. I was a goner. Well, that turned into a fiasco because it was all planned. I was later, a week later, put into a car, shoved into a car, and I've already put that up. It's very sad that, but anyway, taken across the state line with Lina Dempsey. This woman murdered her twins, and Peggy and Carl, and the family covered it up. Later, this one, Annie Carter, who was a school teacher in Carlisle, Kentucky. Oh, I had a letter from, well, I had Hustler magazine car I was driving, and I had this endorsement from Larry Flint, and she knew I'd run in the campaign. So she wasn't, the next time I saw her, she tried to have me killed. She really did. Because I didn't have the car anymore, and she thought, well, I was in bad condition again on the road, and so anyway, I was vulnerable, she thought, and she could get me and no one would help. Well, the sheriff there did. How's that? But anyway, she admitted the first time to the fact that the family covered up Lina killing the twins, and of course they made a pact to never tell. She would be subject to the gas chamber, and they certainly didn't want to tell about me being brought there, and she said they always knew who I am. I was kidnapped from Buckingham Palace, and this is my father, Edward VIII, who married Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, Windsor, Queen Claudia Ruth Windsor, sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe. I think I said my mom was a teacher. Now, my father never married this woman, Wallace Warfield Simpson. She was a spy, American spy. She married a double, an imposter, double ganger, whatever you want to say. They probably had more than one. And my mom was married to my dad when he was forced to abdicate in 1936, December. Now, my dad and mom were married, and as far as I know, they stayed married till they died. This double died in 72 and was buried at Frogmore, Windsor Castle. So they could dig him up, but get his DNA, but that's not the thing. The Brits told me I know who I am for sure. And my dad and mom were still together as far as I know till they died. But they were still alive October the 20th of 86 when I came to Roanoke. This woman is a killer. She has lived off my money, my title, my home while I've been made a pauper, homeless, had been tortured to death over here. This is her family, who are illegal. They're war criminals. Her dad helped in my kidnapping, George VI. So this is the family that I grew up, and that's in 1943 or 44. This picture was taken, and it was staged. They didn't have cars, and you can only see the porch right here. It was horrible. It was a pigsty, and the abuse was horrible. Now that I put Larry Flint here because he endorsed me in a campaign, well, a couple actually, and I was flown out to his home in Bel Air. Now, this was April of 84. Now I want to, what I meant to do was finish the letters. Jack Hartsfield was FBI, an undercover FBI, and he was a reporter for the Huntsville Times, and then later I put this up on the first or second letter, the New Mexican News, and that's in Albuquerque, and he lived not too many miles from my Aunt Georgia, Ghost Ranch, there in Albuquerque. And I was just finding out about my kidnapping. Then this is March of '84. Jack was related, I believe Hank Hartsfield was Jack's nephew. Hank Hartsfield was commander of a couple of the shuttles, and he was from Alabama, and I believe he died there. Now then, Jack saved my life. I can't say anything else the man did. In 1980, after the antifreeze was put in me and I was shoved into a car, my children, my family, nobody taken my apartment, everything. All this happened. And guess who got finally the talk screen that I went to West Paces Ferry to get? And it was never taken. You should see what they did. And then 5 days later, I'm stuffed in the car and across the state line with Lina Dempsey, the mother of the twins that I had to call mother. By the way, I told her, even though I got beat for it, she wasn't my mother. Somehow I knew. So I did remember when I found out about my real name in late '83. I started remembering a lot that happened to me when I was kidnapped and brought to Alabama. But I want to get on with this. This is a letter from Jack. And I was just looking through this, and needless to say, there's been a few of my letters from Jack that's disappeared. One of them was very important, and it's gone too. But anyway, these are the ones that were left, and I put up probably 2 letters, well, 2 videos, and maybe there were more on that than, anyway, I wanted to finish this one. Guess this was March 24th, 2006. Jack had, by this time, has moved out to, he's retired now, and I hope he's still alive. He was in Newhall, California. Anyway, it's outside Los Angeles. So I'm just going to pick up and start reading. And the mob was involved. New Orleans, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Huntsville banks were laundering money. Get it? As you may recall, I was fired from my job at the Huntsville Times for being interested in some things in which I should not have been interested. Divorce, lost my home, my reputation and credibility brought into question, and ultimately forced to leave Alabama to make a living elsewhere. Well, Jack saved my life there. I went to the paper and I told him about mind control. My husband, let me finish this, though I didn't tell this, my husband was or ex-husband, whatever they ended up saying he was he was the one that went in after they'd finally done the talk screen, which was done in Huntsville and supposed to be sent to the crime lab there, but that time it should have dissipated quite a bit. So he went in and got it where I couldn't get it. And Bill Goodson was the man there, doctor. This gets into the Huntsville Times writing stuff on him. He became a killer. I mean, he was anyway. This is a horror story. This happened in Huntsville, Alabama, your Space Center and Redstone, etc. Now, my husband, I'm just going to say husband, I was told that it wasn't legal, the divorce, etc. But anyway, it ended up, he was part of trying to kill me, got my apartment and everything. But it was the doctors that got involved in it too. Larry McDonald, Hardiman, I don't know, I'm sure Gonzalez was in on it. And I got another one that I've put up, and I hope he was so high up, and he shouldn't have even been at West Paces Ferry when I went for the talk screen. So this was all planned. I'm not going to say his name right now, all right? I don't know if he's alive or dead. The last time I checked, he was alive. But later, when I lived, I tried to, I contacted the hospital, and they said he wasn't even on their staff or board, that he wasn't supposed to be there, so therefore they weren't liable. Well, I'm not able to get an attorney, etc. But the man, tried to kill me, helped kill me, for God's sake. So the tox was finally done in Huntsville. And then it came, rather than coming back from Alabama, it came back from Atlanta, the Georgia Crime Lab. And guess what? They had typed my book. One of the girls had typed my book that worked for the crime lab back in '79. So anyway, I'm just, and by the way, at that time, it was 19 point something ethylene glycol, and I forgot the other that was in me. So it had dissipated evidently over the week and a half. It was a week and a half. So that was still in me in the tox screen. So I want to get back to this. Nobody's ever paid in any of this. In here, I'm going to skip on down. You may or may not know, but during the period when our paths crossed in Huntsville was considered the third most sensitive area in the nation where national security was concerned. After all, it was the guts of the U.S. space program, the home of anti-ballistic missile research projects, the location where every Army tactical missile system field anywhere in the free world was managed, where security leaks of sensitive data were occurring far too often, where the Army's missile and munition center and school operated, and I'm going to leave that out because they're the ones that saved me. I'm not going to say something about them. And where J. Edgar Hoover's FBI Division 5, a super secret police agency, had operated since the early 1940s. That's when they kidnapped me in '41 and brought me to Moulton, Alabama, and Cortland Air Base was there. They had to have flown me in there, and that's where JFK comes into play. Okay, but the FBI were there in Huntsville before the Space Center started and all that in about 1956. In fact, it was so sensitive that it did not exist, with links to Daytona, Ohio, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, Louisiana, and links to links to, I'm missing a page. How could that happen? Well, anyway, it is. So here I'll go to this. And sometimes the cloak of national security can be seriously abused, not to protect. Remember, the national security involved was why the FBI, when they issued me the letter, it was an ongoing investigation. It was June the 23rd of '79. It was issued by the FBI through U.S. Attorney William Harper out of Atlanta. Now, I happen to know that some of the FBI were my friends, okay? They helped save my life. It's the Brits who came in and Germans that really went gun-ho, and I do know that some of the FBI did help save my life, and some CIA that I've met, okay? It's been a hell of a life, but I probably wouldn't have lived. And my children, I hope, are still alive. Okay, so they're saying national security can be seriously abused not to protect the nation's secrets, but to hide and bury blunders, even some very blurry conspiracies that more than hinted at heavy criminal involvement in defense contracting. That too was happening in Huntsville. But now no such thing could be occurring in the Rocket City, not in the once sleepy cotton mill town, no way. Anyone who thought so was, well, crazy. Crazy enough to wonder why some individuals who had been in Dallas on that fateful November the 22nd, 1962, would wind up being placed in Huntsville after the Jim Garrison conspiracy trial into Jack Kennedy assassination fell apart. Well, that was covered. By the way, when I met Jack, worked for the DA after the antifreeze was put in me in '80. I went to work for the district attorney in Huntsville, and I lived at Warren House Apartments. His name was Simpson, and you get into clues to my identity. So now then, and there was ways to deal with crazies and bring crazies about, or at least make it appear that one was on the surface. If blackmail or payoffs didn't work, try others. One such way was through a program called MK Ultra, a mind control, mind-altering research project which the Central Intelligence Agency at the time had been dabbling in for years. Targets were sometimes given LSD, other mind-manipulating chemicals, that with the intent to destabilize. Often the targets never knew they were given stuff. Still another program tried to research efforts called psychotronics in the U.S. and formerly called psychotectronics by the later defunct Soviet Union, was pursued using electronic frequencies, low-level frequencies in such cases, in what is called brainwave entrainment. And this is what I tried to tell you. People were taught, they were given the Morse code at a low level that they didn't know they were hearing. They could install it in your home. You could get it off of ham sets. I put this in other, but now then it's satellites and all that are so, well, things are so advanced, even corporations can use mind control. They teach you the Morse code. It's a low level. It's just that easy, okay? If you want to call it subliminal, that's not really the subliminal. That's more, anyway, let me get on with this. You understand. One way was through a program called MK Ultra. Targets were given LSD and other mind manipulating chemicals with the intent to destabilize. Often the targets never knew they were given the stuff. Well, they didn't know they were getting mind control and programmed either to kill or whatever, develop cancer and die. Still another program tied to the research effort called psychotronics in the U.S. and formerly called, I guess I read this, only a percentage of the area's population would be susceptible to psychotronics. Maybe only 10 to 20, but it did exist, and if minds without and was used to electronically plant concepts and ideas in human minds. Well, they put chips in you. In heart bypasses, one of the doctors I worked for, I told about this. This is when I was doing the book and finding out about how it was being done, the mechanism used. But anyway, the concept can implant fear, lethargy, manic moods, even deep depression, and explains paranoia. When you really aren't paranoid, you really aren't, okay? A gentleman named Nikola Tesla, and I've been telling about him throughout this, was researching psychotronics as far back as the 30s. Soviet Union at one time wound up with most of his research after his death, as I recall. I think Jack's wrong there. I hate to say it because I don't think Jack was wrong on anything, but I do think he might have been wrong about that. I know who got that. And they can create illnesses and cure them as far back as that. That was connected to Roosevelt, and they killed Tesla. In my judgment, well, I've already said this, I think, oh, no, I didn't, so I'm not going to get this up. It may come as a surprise to you, but I did share a lot of this with Larry Flint last year. You may already know that I didn't. And I have made approaches with data to a lot of others, some of the publishing business, some in the movie business. The frustration is I can't gauge the headway. My ears to the ground, listening. Oh, this is going to go off. I'm going to jump to here. At quiet moments, I try to make a grounded assessment of all the above. It's dastardly events above, particularly